So with how the RNG is in Diablo 4, getting your desired item affix, legendary aspect, or unique item is not always that easy. But thanks to the Diablo 4 community, we now have definitive information and thus methods to target farm each, with some very clever tricks utilizing alternate characters and how monster families and their specific drop rates work. And up first, here's a resource that helps us determine the exact odds for rerolling an affix at the occultist, as well as the different odds for each class, because they're in fact actually different, and you can actually use the occultist on different classes with the same items to get different outcomes. So this infographic is extremely helpful for not only determining the odds for rolling a given affix on a given item slot, but also the specific affixes that can actually roll for your class. And one of the best ways to use this is when re-rolling an affix at the occultist, to utilize one of the classes to get the best odds for the given affix that you're looking for that slot. Based on, for example, how many affixes are available for that class in that slot, usually the fewer the affixes, the higher the odds it is to get one specific affix right. Or if you're looking for a specific one that is not re-rollable by your class, you can also utilize another class to roll that affix for you to then use that item on a different class. So for instance, on a helmet, the sorcerer is the only class that can roll lucky hit chance while you have a barrier on a helmet. So if you are, say, a necromancer or any specialization that utilizes lucky hit and a barrier, you can totally have a sorcerer roll that affix specifically. Then you can still use that helmet on a different class if you want. And again, these only require a level 1 character because your gold is basically shared among your classes, right? Although you will have to complete a dungeon at least on your new character to be able to unlock the occultist on that character, but it's pretty quick to do anyway. And by the way, at the very top, it shows all the affixes that are shared across every class, and then below you obviously have the class specific ones. And another application of this would then be, for example, if you wanted to roll a general affix that again is rollable by any class, say lucky hit chance on a glove or critical strike chance. For example, for gloves, since barbarians have the fewest class-specific affixes in this pool, it would be ideal to roll, if you wanted to get one of the general ones, on a barbarian to get the best odds. Another example would be with pants. If you want to roll one of these general affixes such as maximum life or some kind of damage reduction, you would be best off rolling with a necromancer because they have only 5 class-specific affixes here, giving them the best odds for getting one of these at the top, or any given one, right? With that, lastly, I did notice a small mistake with this infographic. If you're a druid main or play a sorcerer, you should be aware of this, and it's that druids can actually, on rings and gloves, roll critical strike damage to lightning skills. So here it only says earth and werewolf, but lightning is definitely one of them, and sorcerers can roll that too, right? So if you wanted to get critical strike damage with lightning, you can roll on both a druid or a sorcerer. So that's just a small mistake that I noticed with this infographic, but it could be updated very soon with a correction. And now moving on to the best way to target legendary aspects. First of all, as you probably already know, they are categorized into different types, being offensive, defensive, resource, utility, and movement. And when it comes to trying to target these, the Purveyor of Curiosities, which is the, again, gambling system of Diablo 4, is generally a really good way to keep gambling for the specific slot that would be able to spawn the category that you need, right? The category such as offensive or defensive aspect that you need. And preferably if you're targeting the specific aspect as opposed to just, say, a good base item from the Purveyor, you would actually go for the ones with the cheapest cost while having the greatest odds to get your intended aspect, right? Which means you'll be usually targeting the slot that has the fewest competing aspects for that slot. For instance, because gloves can have both offensive and utility aspects, and say offhands can only spawn offensive aspects, being the same cost of obols, offhands are generally a cheaper and better and more efficient choice for targeting specifically offensive aspects. But that's actually only the first part of the strategy, because with the second part, you'll actually be able to also incorporate your knowledge of different classes and the different odds for each class to be able to gamble even more efficiently. So this tool here is very conveniently put together to help you determine the best gambling odds at the purveyor of curiosities for a given or any given legendary aspect. And you can even filter by class. For example, I can click on Druid and I can click on any of the aspects that they have, such as an offensive Druid aspect. And as you can see here, the most optimal item to gamble is offhands on a Druid because it has the best odds per obols that you're spending at the purveyor to get an offensive aspect. However, if you, like me, are also looking for good gloves in general, like good glove bases in general, then you might still be better off gambling for gloves. So it really depends on your specific situation as well. Also, sometimes you can actually have higher odds gambling on a different class. For example, with the popular Disobedience defensive aspect, the Necromancer actually has the overall highest odds of gambling for it on pants because they have the lowest number of aspects that can spawn on pants, right? And to do this, if you don't have a Necromancer or if you don't main a Necromancer, you can always just create one because obols are shared across your characters anyway, so you can always gamble on any of your alts that you want. Next, on the same website as the gambling tool, the unique target farming tool allows you to select any unique item for any class. And again, you can filter by class, such as by Druid here. And for example, if I want to farm for the Great Staff of the Crone, which by the way I really do not have, I can just click on it and it'll show not only the monster types that have the greatest odds of dropping this item, so being Fallen and Goatman, and again, specific types of enemies have higher odds of dropping specific types of items, right? Hence this being able to work like this. And not only that, but this site also shows you the dungeons that spawn with the most of these enemies, and as well as the ones that can roll into nightmare dungeons. So the ones that say Sigil, you can turn into a nightmare dungeon and could be great for not only farming aspects, but also for, say, your Paragon Glyph experience and just general character experience farming, right? Especially with the recent buffs. And so with this, you want to go with the ones with the most highlights, such as, for example, if I wanted to do the Crone staff again, I would benefit from probably doing the Shifter runes the most because it's not only a nightmare dungeon, but it's also a pretty quick dungeon to do, right? Let's do another example. If I wanted to do the Tempest Roar, you can actually highlight multiple uniques too, but let me just highlight Tempest Roar since a lot of builds very heavily depend on this. So for the Tempest Roar, you would want to farm cultists and cannibals, where more specifically, the Serpent Slayer and the Earthen Wound are probably your best bets because these are not only high density, they're nightmare dungeons, but they're also pretty quick, right, compared to even the rest. So this is just an excellent tool for helping you hone in on and sort of narrow down your range of, say, the nightmare dungeons or dungeons that you run to get better odds of finding specific uniques. And for just one more example, if say I wanted to farm the Harlequin Crest, also known as Shaco, super duper rare unique item, you would first of all need monster level 85 plus for this to even be able to drop, and this has been confirmed by an official Blizzard source. And of course you need World Tier 4, and so the Nightmare Dungeons that you're running has to have monsters above that level, right? So the Nightmare Dungeon level plus 54, right? So that would be 31 plus 54, which is 85. So you just do Nightmare Dungeon levels above that and also target the specific mobs or the creatures that drop that item, being cultists and cannibals, and these are the dungeons that you would benefit from, or that would be the best to farm this, namely especially Serpent Slayer and Earthen Wound again. And that's all I wanted to share in today's video. Let me know if you found it helpful or if you have even other tips to share in the comment section below. And with that, thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing to my channel for more. Also follow me on Twitch for when I stream some Lightning Storm Druid action or some other playstyles. And with that, I will catch you in the next video. Peace.